Consuming the right potions makes you overpowered in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. You can see in the dark, you can avoid needing to sleep and become an absolute tank and buff your weapons with insane benefits as well. Let's go! Let me know the best potions you have found in the comments down below. Firstly, I want to talk about the Secret of Secrets perk, which unlocks the highest tier of quality for your potions. This does make a significant difference. Now, what this does is it unlocks like the Henry quality of potions, as long as you are using fresh ingredients and you get that potion recipe basically 100% correct. Like, you can make the occasional slight mistake, and in some recipes I've noticed if I use like one dried herb and the rest are fresh, I'll still get a Henry quality. But for the most part, it needs to be like essentially perfect. A clear example of why this is important is the Artemisia potion. At the weak and like the standard levels, it just increases your strength for a period of time, which isn't that useful. Now at the strong, but especially the Henry level, you'll still get that strength benefit, but it will reduce the stamina cost of attacking and defending. Now, if you've done any combat in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, you'll know that stamina usage is like the crux of the entire combat system, other than remembering combos. So reducing the amount of stamina cost is so beneficial. Plus, getting that extra strength means you'll often deal a little bit more damage as well, depending on the weapon type that you are using. So it's a really strong potion to use, and it shows that clear example of difference between a Henry version versus like a normal version. And you can see in this footage here, when I'm just sparring with Menhart, the difference in the stamina usage compared to with the potion off versus it on, when I'm just constantly swinging away. Like, it essentially means I won't run out of stamina at this point when I'm like maxed out, because of all the extra stamina buffs that I do have from perks. Before we get into the specific potions that you should be making, I want to talk about herbs generally speaking as well. Now, you will find herbs just on the side of the road, like all around the map, and you definitely want to be picking them up regularly. You can just buy them, but like I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, especially because most herbalists often sell the dried variants, which will prevent you from getting the Henry quality. Something that I've found really useful for just finding herbs out in the wilderness, as well as just like general map exploration, is the Explorer perk. This can be found under the scholarship line. What this will do is it will unlock the entire map for you, so you'll be able to see everything and all the points of interest. I didn't actually know that there was a herb garden and a herbalist like right near Trotsky Castle in the Trotsky region until I got this perk, because essentially you can see everything on the map here. So definitely herb gardens are obviously fantastic for finding herbs, but this will help you find herb gardens on the map, but it will also help you see locations where you might be able to find them, because you know when you're looking in your menus and you're looking at the herbs, it'll say like, oh, this could be found, say, you know, in the forest clearing sort of area, something like that. You can then look at the map and see exactly sort of where those locations would be, because the whole map is available to you. But obviously, you know, herbalists then are included on the map because they're always outside of the town, so sometimes they're hard to find, and you'll be able to buy the herbs from them as well if you did want to go down that route. Let's get into some combat potions you should be making. Before we do that, save your schnapps. I'm not going to cover how to make this in this video, as I have already covered it in my beginner's guide, so go and watch that if you want to know how to make save your schnapps. But it is absolutely a potion that you should be making. I just feel like it's not really relevant for this video when we're talking about some more advanced potions. But I will talk about the Marigold decoction, because the Henry version of this potion heals you for more than half of your health. Plus, when you get the perks that increase the overall health you get, it essentially one potion will max out your entire health from a Henry Marigold decoction. Now, to make a Marigold decoction, you do need nettle and marigold, which is super easy to get. To make this recipe perfectly, you do need nettle and 2 marigold. Now, something that I like to do with all of my potions, if there is a grind, like grinding some of the herbs, I always do that before I actually start the making process, just so I don't forget to do that grind. So in this case with marigold, you need 2 handfuls of marigold. I always grind that first and then put it in like the little bowl. And then you need water in the pot with a nettle, and then you need to boil it for 2 turns and then take it off the heat, add that grinded marigold, and then pour, and you're all good. The Henry version of the decoction does heal for 60 health as well as cure hangover. It's definitely worth having these higher quality and making a fair chunk of these as well. Having the perks like the Secret of Matter 1 and 2 that then allow you to brew more of that potion just by making 1 of these is definitely beneficial. Like, I'm getting 6 just for 1 brew here, so I need to do this like twice, and I've got 12 of them, which will essentially sustain me for a pretty solid period of time. Next is the Painkiller Brew. Now, this is still a combat potion that you absolutely should be crafting. You need poppy, comfrey, and marigold for this one. It is a little bit more complex, perks. So for this one, you'll need to grind the poppy, and that is 3 handfuls of poppy, and then you put that into the cauldron with spirits, and then from there you add 1 handful of marigold and use the bellows and boil for 1 turn. Add a single handful of comfrey, and then you'll need to boil for 2 turns, and then finally distill. Now in order to distill, you need to pick up the vial, and then the still is actually next to that, and then you'll need to distill it by just like holding X as you typically would pour the potion out. Just make sure you don't forget that step, and you'll be able to get a Henry quality painkiller. The Henry version of this potion suppresses the effects of injury, and your maximum stamina decreases with health 75% less for 15 minutes. So what this means is you take less damage from actually being hit, but the main crux of this potion is the stamina reduction with your health being 75% less. So you may have noticed when you do take damage, your stamina will reduce at the same rate that your health does. With painkiller, even if your health reduces, your stamina won't reduce as much, because how important stamina is for combat, like we already touched on in this video. It makes such a significant difference, especially when you're in a tight spot and you're actually getting destroyed by enemies. If you can keep that stamina high, you can keep blocking for longer as well as attacking for longer, because once that stamina starts getting really low, it becomes very hard to stay on top of enemies when they're attacking you, as well as actually being able to counter strike and potentially win that encounter. Aqua Vitalis is next. Now this is a pretty easy one to make. All that you actually need is marigold and dandelion, and you'll find dandelion everywhere, as it's a weed. You'll find like the yellow flowers all over the place. So for this one, you need to grind the marigold. You only need 1 handful of marigold for this one. I like to grind it before, as mentioned, and then you just need to add water to the cauldron along with 2 handfuls of dandelion, and then boil it for 1 turn, and then add that grinded marigold, and then boil for 2 turns, and then you distill after that point. The Henry version of this potion, you lose 60% less health and bleed 60% slower for 15 minutes. That is a massive reduction in the amount of health that you will lose when you do take hits. Now, by comboing the Aqua Vitalis, the Painkiller Brew, and the Artemisa that we touched on, you essentially become like an iron tank if you have got armor on. Like for the most part, enemies won't be able to kill you unless you do something silly or like, you know, make mistakes. Like say, for example, you're wearing a helmet and you forget to pull that helmet down and they whack you in the face with a giant hammer. Won't kill you, but it will still deal a decent amount of damage, as you can see in this footage. But it does make such a difference to the amount of damage that you will actually take, not only the stamina reduction, but also the health. And when you're in scenarios where there's lots of enemies around you, it really does make a difference having these potions active. Now, make sure you are equipping them on your belt on whatever like your combat set is. So for me, I like to have like the marigold decoction on one, and then like the painkiller brew and the Aqua Vitalis, and then the Artemisa on the other, so that I've got all of them available and then I can equip them. Because once a combat starter encounter, you can't use things from your inventory. Before that you can. So with a lot of these ones that last like 15 minutes, you can, if you know that that combat encounter is coming, you can equip them beforehand. But like, it's just something to note that you should definitely be putting these on your pouch. The best stealth potions to make, there are 2 that you should be making, namely 1 for the most part, but the second one is worthwhile in the early game when you're still trying to get that thievery skill up. The first being Nighthawk. So in order to make Nighthawk, you need eyebright, belladonna, and chamomile. Now you'll need to add water to the pot and then grind the eyebright. Now you need to grind 2 handfuls of eyebright and then add that to the pot, and then you need to add belladonna, and it's just 1 handful of belladonna. Boil it for 3 turns and then grind chamomile, and it's just the 1 handful of chamomile. Add that to the pot and then finally pour, and you'll be able to make Nighthawk. Now what Nighthawk does is at the Henry level, it does stop your energy from reducing, which is great if you're trying to like stealth around at night when it is dark and, you know, spend that night thieving rather than sleeping. That definitely helps. But also the main thing here is that because you can see at night without the torch, you will then be less visible to enemies, so you can stealth much easier, as well as wander around the town without like being spotted if your visibility is low enough. This comes into play when you're trying to sneak into enemy camps at night or say steal things. That's the main reason you use the Nighthawk. Quick Finger is the other one here. This increases your thievery and your craftsmanship skills. The main thing is thievery here, so it makes it easier for lockpicking and pickpocketing. Mostly usable in the early game. Once you get enough perks here, thievery does become significantly easier. So in order to make this, you need Valarian, eyebright, and a cobweb. Cobwebs can be found in like destroyed houses, typically in their chest. You'll find a couple of cobwebs there. In order to make the quick finger, you'll need to add water to the pot and then add the cobweb as well as 2 handfuls of eyebright and then boil that for 3 turns. You'll then need to grind 2 handfuls of valerian and add that to the cauldron, boil for 1 turn, and then finally pour, and you'll be able to get the Henry version of the quick finger potion. One more really good potion, especially for you night dwellers, is the cockerel. What this does is increases your energy and it also lowers you from tiring. So if you don't like the whole sleep mechanic, this can essentially like prevent you from ever needing to sleep, basically, because you can just pop this every day and keep yourself without the need to sleep. So in order to make this, you do need mint and valerian, just 2 handfuls of mint. So you need to grind those 2 handfuls of mint and add it to the cauldron along with spirits, boil for 1 turn, and then add 1 handful of valerian, boil for 2 turns, and then distill. Very easy to make and get that Henry quality. The Henry quality of this potion is an increase of 30 energy, and your energy decreases 50% slower for that day. But moving on to some poisons, as there are like 2 main poisons that I think you should absolutely know how to make for 2 different reasons. The first one I'm going to talk about is the Bane potion. Now you use this mostly to poison cooking pots or say like wine barrels or things like that. What you do that for is that when they say wake up in the day or they're going to bed at night and they're having like their meals, if you have managed to poison their pots or their wine without them noticing, they'll consume that and essentially just kill themselves. It makes that so much easier. There's a non-lethal version of this called Lullaby, which essentially does the same thing. It just knocks them out rather than defeating them, if that's your thing. Now, in order to make this, you'll need wormwood, belladonna, and the Armata muscaria mushroom, probably saying that wrong. The mushrooms are a little hard to find, but you can definitely buy them from herbalists if you are struggling, but they're the red mushrooms that you might find out in the world. Any of this potion's version that you make will result in death, but it's the speed at which that death results at. So the Henry version is much quicker than like the strong version, etc. In order to make this, you'll need to add wine to the cauldron, and then you'll need to add a handful of wormwood and boil for 2 turns. Then you'll need to grind 2 handfuls of belladonna and add that to the cauldron and then boil for 1 turn using the bellows. Don't forget that step. And then just take it off the heat, add the mushroom, and then you can finally distill it and you'll make the Henry version of this potion. Now the Henry version will poison the enemy to death within 15 seconds and the strong version is 30 seconds, and then it's less depending on that variant that you are actually using. Something to note with these is that in most cases you're only going to get 1 or 2 enemies with these poisonings, because they will notice that, you know, someone ate the food and then immediately died. A lot of the enemies will be aware that maybe there was something wrong with that food, right? So they won't actually finish it. Like in this footage here, you can see that they were both eating food. One of them didn't actually finish their meal, so they did survive. But I did finish them off by using the Dollmaker potion attached to one of my arrows. Now the Dollmaker potion is fantastic because what this does is it makes running impossible and it reduces the weapon skills, which is fine. It does decrease their health at the higher versions, but the main crux of this potion is running impossible. The reason that is important is when you are hunting game, like when you're out doing your hunting, you may have noticed that in KCD2, when you're out, you know, poaching and hunting, trying to take down deer, roe, etc., you will shoot them once and they will yeet themselves away. They'll immediately disappear. Now, you can sometimes send Mutt after them and he'll catch up to them, but having a arrow or like a crossbow bolt that has this on it will prevent them from running, so they won't be able to escape, so you can easily defeat them. To make the Henry quality of the Dollmaker, you will need spirits, 2 handfuls of herb Paris and 1 of valerian. You just need to add the herb Paris to the cauldron along with spirits and boil for 3 turns. Grind the handful of valerian and then add that to the cauldron, boil for 2 turns, and then finally distill. Primarily you want to add this to your arrows, but you can add it to like your swords or anything like that if you want to. It will then prevent enemies from running away from you if you do have that, like, you know, scary sort of intimidation look that you can get with Henry, especially in the later game, that enemies run away from you a lot. This will stop them from running away if you want to defeat them, as well as decrease their health, like from that like damage over time effect that it does have. But the last tip that I have for you today is the reason that I have told you exactly how to make all of these potions in this video is because then you don't need to buy the recipes from the herbalist. It may sound tedious to go go through all these potions one by one, but if you just make them in the game based off the information I gave you in this video, you will unlock the recipe without having to buy it. It'll appear in your journal, so you won't have to spend that extra groschen in order to get the recipe for yourself. So make sure you go back, pause the video on the potions that you want to make when the recipe is on the screen, and you'll be able to make them for yourself. But that's all I got for you today. Let me know your favorite potions in the comments. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.